Yes, another historical fuckboy. Let's talk about Albert Einstein. So there's this saying people love, behind every great man is a great woman. But what does that actually mean? Because historically, women weren't just supporting men and men were appreciating it. Women were often contributing to the work or doing the work without getting the credit. And sometimes there wasn't a lot of real proof to prove that they did any of it. Albert Einstein is a perfect example of why this conversation is a lot more complicated and more important than people might think. Because there's this claim floating around that his wife was the real genius. Well, I should say his first wife. But there's no clear definitive proof. However, there are enough receipts to make the question worth taking seriously. So Einstein, in a lot of their letters, referred to our work a lot of the time when he was talking about this stuff. The two of them studied together at the Zurich Polytechnic. Mileva became one of the only women in the male-dominated physics program at the time. She's a trained physicist and mathematician and worked alongside him in a lot of their early years. So this idea didn't come from nowhere. It comes from real evidence of intellectual partnership. And when you place that into the context of the times, remember, we're not looking at this in a silo, a world where women had limited access to publishing, recognition, institutional power, not the same freedom as men, etc., it becomes a lot easier to understand how contributions could be absorbed and completely erased because the system didn't require clear credit. It didn't protect women's work or women at all. It allowed men to become the face of ideas and intellect while women remained invisible behind the lines. So it is extremely possible Mileva contributed more than historical records show. It is also possible we'll never fully know the extent of that. But it is theorized that she actually developed the theory of relativity. But this isn't about proving a conspiracy. I want us to recognize a pattern. Mileva Maric was not just Einstein's wife, she was a brilliant, highly trained physicist and mathematician. And early on, there was a real intellectual partnership between them, like I said in the beginning. But over time, that dynamic shifted quite a lot. So she faced a lot of setbacks. She actually failed her final exams because she was pregnant and under immense pressure, a lot of societal stuff. Einstein's career was accelerating at the time, and as it continued to grow, that gap just widened. Also, as his fame grew, his behavior became horrendous. Historians and biographers point to patterns that are really hard to ignore. Einstein didn't just drift away from Mileva, he diminished her. Some argue that he undervalued or ignored her intellectual contributions entirely, and at the same time, he was very openly unfaithful, not once, but repeatedly. He's a fuckboy. And it didn't stop there. His second wife, Elsa, was treated much worse, less like an equal partner, more like a caretaker, someone managing his life behind the scenes, while he remained the genius at the center of it all. And when his private writings were published, his travel diaries from the 1920s, they revealed something completely crazy. Sexist and xenophobic, callous attitudes that even historians described as shocking and unpleasant. This was in his travels to Asia. So this wasn't just a man of his time. Even scholars say that his behavior stood out for the wrong reasons for that time. And then there's 1914. When their marriage fell apart, Einstein gave Mileva a written list of conditions if she wanted to stay in the relationship. No affection, no intimacy. She was to handle all his meals, do all his laundry, handle the whole household, and leave the room immediately when he asked her to. He reduced this intellectual partner, who had the same credibility as him, reduced her role to service, while he expanded into global recognition. So when people are saying behind every great man is a great woman, this is often what it looks like, right? Not just support, but a shift from equal partner, intellectual human being, to invisible labor and nothing, do what I say. Mileva never rebuilt a scientific career either. She wasn't credited on the work. She didn't gain recognition in her field at all. Despite her mental capacity, her proximity to one of the most famous minds in history did not translate into any opportunities for herself, despite her contributions. So whether she was the quote-unquote true genius or not, we're still left with the same reality. A brilliant woman directly involved in early stages of something world-changing, who elevated her husband, who didn't receive recognition, opportunity, or legacy at the same level. Remember, women don't have the same access, opportunities, or freedom, right? That's the pattern. Because for a long time, women didn't just stand behind the great men. They were held down by the boots of those men. And a lot of what they contributed never got to have their name on it. And even now I'm talking about this, and all I can say is there's a lot of receipts, but no definitive proof. And that is really what the legacy of behind every great man is a great woman. That's what it really is. Until next time, y'all.